Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. Today, I'm interviewing Mark Thieler. Mark manages a legal firm and is a keen philosopher. Hi, Mark.
How you doing this morning, Nick?
Well, for me, it's the evening, but I'm doing good. Yeah,
Yeah, what time is it there again? What is the kind
it's
of
7:15 for me, p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge difference. How are things back on that side as far as COVIDs and shutdowns?
Well, we're on lockdown, and well, they say that it seems like they're intent on making restrictions for where you can go if you don't if you can't be ready to go on holiday if you don't get the vaccine and stuff. But we'll see. I'm not going to get it, but
Are you
uh,
guys mandated to your home or basically where you
technically we
were?
can. There's a rule that you're meant to generally stay unless it's something like you need to help someone in like your bubble or something. But like I don't know in practice, I don't sure how enforced it is. You can still travel around actually.
Yeah.
It seems that they just tell people to stay in the homes, and most people do.
Huh.
A lot of people they just automatically. I've got this idea that people will follow the rules until the point that the thing is if they do to break the rules and to stop viewing the rules as like there for them, if they were to stop viewing the establishment as like in their best interest, that would be the idea of not believing that is more scary than the idea of being imposed upon by the rules until the point where the rules get too extreme for them. And it just like it also matter
Yeah.
whether or not when someone wakes up. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of the whole deal with all of this stuff here too. And it's kind of the nature of what's going on right now all over the globe as we're seeing with just a lot of disruption and such. And this is why I've always been a big fan and an advocate for blockchain blockchain technologies, not just with the currency, but with the fact that you can govern and also provide legal contracts and other services from a decentralized platform, which to me, it's the only way that we can go forward as a technological society that's going to make sense for a lot of people. Because what I think we're seeing here, it's pretty obvious to anybody, is when we have this top-down centralized authority that is now mandating these dictates and mandates. Um, it's like from a general consensus, it doesn't matter what society or culture you're in. It's almost just like this immaturity of spirit, psychology, and as where you are on your evolutionary track, our journey, is people have been so full of shit individually and collectively. So individually, the body isn't sound and critical and capable enough of electing, being participating, becoming a part of the body, and basically forming well bodies that can regulate from a centralized standpoint. We've just had this nonstop bullshit while people have always been self-centered, from the financial markets to the financial markets you can name any market. It's been people telling us one thing and then always being out for themselves. And so if you go look at any centralized authority, I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be the World Health Organization. It can be your own government. It can be your PTA. It can be your hockey association. It can be your state legislature. You know, that body is only going to be as good as the head. Or the head's only going to be as good as the body. And so with a centralized authority, it's a fantasy. It's kind of a delusion and bullshit, because we know that the collective is a pretend and a false authority, because it's largely the greatly unconscious. And so what we get with all of that, we're seeing this greatly with COVID in general, and its general perspective, is it's a perfect platform for virtue signaling and for giving off the airs of I'm more safe than you, collectively, so it's when we have this centralized authority that's largely unconscious, which means that they can't come to terms with their appetites, with their own self-indulgences. We get all of these, whether it's the CDC, whether it's the WHO, it's the UN, whether it's your parliament, your government, our government, whatever the shit, it doesn't terribly matter. Mayor, state, federal, it's always the same. You get a lot of people that are pretending that they're there for the people, when they haven't done the work themselves in their head. They haven't actualized their own self. So their fruit is bullshit, and it's only a matter of time for that bullshit to expose. And so when we're seeing, with the way that governments are handling COVID, the way governments have handled cannabis, the way governments have handled anything from the top down, you can see that it's not the best way of providing services and governance to the people. So, yeah.
What about how the vast majority of us, whether we realize it or not, a lot of people tacitly consent on like a spiritual basis to the simulation we're creating, co-creating, right? And so in a way, even though the structures are very authoritarian and at times, like a lot of the time, it couldn't continue without people just going along with it.
Yeah, because it's exactly like this in a real level. Is, I was going to try to write something on this, because I really think it's an important distinction. Being mindful, being somebody that is full of mind and is a mindful person, why people aren't mindful is it requires goddamn effort to be mindful, to have those tough conversations, to stand up for things that you don't feel is right. It's like you're talking about giving tacit approval. During any given day, most people give nonstop tacit approval to fundamental things that go against probably their better nature or better character, but they don't want to fight. They're already either so overwhelmed with what they've got or whatever, so they just don't want to have that tough conversation, because it requires much more effort than just pretending, minimizing it, suppressing it, exiling it, escaping from it, which was what nearly everybody on the planet does. Is they don't want to stand face to face and have that tough conversation and examine it critically and objectively and seeing where it goes, which often leads into the unknown.
What are the different ways in which people escape from it?
Well, the biggest thing that people escape, and where they're not conscious of it, it's unintentional, and this is where, again, it goes right back to effort, is having you have to have effort with this, is our neurospheres have been programmed with schematic shortcuts, which, heuristics. There's a number of books out there now that cover a lot of this stuff on how our minds create shortcuts. So culture is what indoctrinates, installs, and instills these cultural schema, which then produce these shortcuts. Shortcuts produce bias. And so as the more information flows in, evolutionary biology can't keep up with technological exponentiality. So we can't process better. We have to filter out better. And so that's what we're seeing with society, because our neurospheres can't keep pace with all of this information being bombarded with us. So we filter out more and more of it, and we overutilize shortcuts more and more. And so those shortcuts replace the human being, and then people become these animated scripts, because it's all shortcut. And we're in a society right now that's kind of hyper evolved to the state of most people most of the time are in this hyper state
Is it
of
ego?
animosity. It's not it no well, I tell you what, it's not, because it's this is largely done unconscious on the undercurrent, so it's almost under the radar or the regard of the ego, because the ego, if ego is a tool and it can be used as a tool to greater your power, to greater your actuality. So the ego, people like to throw it under the bus. They like to elevate. They like to talk all of this shit, but really, it's just another tool at our disposal. And you should have a healthy ego. And so the thing is that most people don't have healthy egos because they haven't had that, like I keep talking about, this heart-to-heart conversation with their self and their appetites.
Are you talking about neurosis?
No, I'm mostly talking about most people on an individual basis can't come to full terms with their own appetites.
Right. Okay.
So they don't want to come to terms with they're largely self-serving, self-indulgent, self-centered. They want what they want. Now, this is the ego self-centered talking, and this ego. The ego wants to be validated. The ego wants to be seen. The ego wants its hunger satisfied. Very simple. And this is a true tool and a need for us as a human being. And so if we pretend that we don't have all of the appetites that the ego has, dark or light, it doesn't matter what it is, the more that you pretend that you are above or beyond, underneath, above the appetites of the ego, you will have psychological problems, and then depending on the nature of how those are handled, those will create those pathologies. But what I'm mostly talking about, on another hand, is shortcuts that we as a society install and instill. We download is developing kids, developing systems, cosmos systems. You know, we're 0 to 7 years old, 7 to 13 or so. We're downloading all of the schematics that are going to allow us to defend the ego, defend the story, get resources, allocate resources, navigate all of these things. And so we've inherited shortcuts from our upstream providers, which will be our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, our institutions, our culture. And so how our culture, to the fact that they didn't resolve what they should have resolved, it gets all passed down to us. It's
like ancestral karma almost.
Yeah,
they're not dealing with. Yeah, they're not dealing with just bad parenting, essentially. And
we're back to this: the blind leading the blind, and this is where you got to just let everybody off the hook. Is people don't know what they don't know. Even like good parents, you just don't know what you don't know. But there comes a time where you do know. There is this critical point where, and that's where the responsibility and the magnitude become even more and more and more. Once you realize that you, as a father, as an individual, is like the basis level of our existence and purpose here on earth, is to get that one thing right. Like if people could just concentrate on getting one thing right, which in a nutshell is quit adding to the shit show and the noise. So it's like, if you want to do your part as a human being, that you can die with dignity, knowing that you fulfilled some sort of purpose that you yourself can feel good about, that nobody else can take away from. You could bet everything on the fact that if all the bullshit stops with you, you can look in your family's history, you can look in your nation's history, you can look in your uncles and your great grandfather, whoever the shit. It doesn't even terribly matter. You can look at your own evidence through your own firsthand experiences, what works and what doesn't work, and what is derailed and led you down dark or meaningless tunnels and avenues and depressions and things that aren't fun, for the human spirit to indulge in. And you can get to where you can kind of figure that out to the point where the only true well-being comes from this spring of getting it. and this is
Awareness, you mean?
it's an actualization. It's where it's like, I think that's where things start to open up and actualize, is because once you do get that point, which is people like to, I'm here for purpose and meaning and all of these things, and I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. That's the worst one. I'm here to serve, or I'm here to help people, or all of this shit. It is a falsehood that will lead to that can only lead to one point. But if you look at it another kind of a different way, is the more that you serve yourself to the point where you're not indulging in your own shit. You're not indulging in the same traps and the shortcuts and the pathologies that have previously disturbed your relationship with actual life.
Right. I think you're saying that we need to heal ourselves, fill our own cup up first, and because then we won't be effectively lashing out or whatever onto other people.
Yeah, well, it's also like whatever you build, and it's really simple to figure out, is we want to, all of us are creators and developers, and we want to build something. And we're going to build something. We are going to build narratives. We're going to build stories. We're going to build lives and dreams. We're going to have a collective dream and an individual dream. There's no way around that. That's why we have this beautiful place down here, is to dream and to build. So why not build right from the start, which is like right now, so you have no choice in the matter whether you're 15 or 50 or 100, or doesn't matter. You got to start from the only place that you can start from, which is now. Why don't you build something with that is going to stand the test of time, which is going to be built on actual life, actual real life principles, which comes from self-actualization. So it's like, no longer am I spending all of this time in inner conflict or external conflict, battling the culture, as we can clearly see, where the left ideology battles the right ideology, the conservative and liberal.
Right.
They battle their ideologies. And so all of that's energy. That's emotional currency that's just pissed away. Absolutely, individually and collectively, pissed away into the ether for absolutely no real gain other than the destruction of that ecosystem, because it isn't going to resolve what is currently unresolved. So it's like, that's, again, it goes right back to my main point. What we're trying to do here is figure out within what on our own plate, what's unresolved in our own life. What within our own equation has rendered our creative magic, I call it impotence. It's an effect of impotency. If you're not getting what you want out of life, if you're not producing the equities, which really means that you're not producing deep meaning and well-being on a daily basis, and you're navigating that current of well-being, and you're winning, you're surfing and you're enjoying your time, and you're cultivating and you're rising to the occasion. I mean, that's what you should be doing.
So how do we do this? How do we learn to?
The first step is you have to destroy yourself. The first step in all of this,
destroy the false self.
Well, you have to destroy the narrative, the culture that you've enveloped yourself in. And so you can think of it in this way, is that until you've done all of the work, you're obviously unconscious and you're unactualized, because there's a critical mass point. It's just like turning on a light switch, off and on, or boiling water or freezing water. There's a critical point that happens in this equation where this becomes that. And so self-actualization is this in a way, yet it kind of runs different layers. But the first part is realizing that, because again, you start out, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't realize you are enveloped in this cultural skin that has replaced what I would call your aliveness, your authentic self, what you're trying to get to. So because you had no choice in the matter, from 0 to 7, from womb to 7, from 7 to 13, reinforced the rest of the life, because nobody showed you, nobody told you, there was nobody to show the way. Only the error was there to show the way of what not to do. So we didn't know any better. And so we envelop ourselves with this false skin of culture and ideology. And so
Yeah.
it's not that parts of it aren't true. It's that as a totality, what happens is the culture and the skin takes over the being that's there.
Ah.
And they can't tell the difference over, after repeating the same behavior, you don't know what you don't know, and all of a sudden you don't realize that you're living a cultural lie, and yet you don't also realize the extent and magnitude of living that lie.
Right. So the first step is realizing something's off, and then starting to define yourselves in terms rather than society, in individual terms in some way. And once you've got an individual way of interpreting yourself, then you can start to relate yourself to other people. I mean, onto something
It's
there?
hard. It's really hard in a way, and this is why so few actually um, uh, achieve this kind of, I would say, state of mind, because it is really difficult, because in one way it's like ripping off a band-aid. And so um, where we are in society right now, when you do the work, so when you do realize it's not something, that something's not right here, let me explore this, and then it becomes this, to me, I guess I can only speak from my experience, but I think it's universal. I think it's like this with everything, with everybody. I think it's just the nature of the like a metamorphosis in a way, is you you have this feeling that something's not right. But what happens, it's like I was talking about, what requires effort is to start to explore that, because it's obviously easier not to explore it, because it requires less effort. It's already there. So why explore what you've already closed the book on? That's what religions do. They close the book on things. So what would it be within somebody? Why would they want to really spend a lot of time figuring out what's not quite right? And then that again, this is a kind of a desire too, something that's just not right. I'm kind of curious about it. Let's explore it. Then that exploration turns into more of a kind of a flame passion of like, wow, I want to understand something here. And then in order to kind of get to the heart of things, it requires, it requires a different type of I'm gonna say, I don't know how to explain it. It's very scary. Let's just put it that way. When you are at the point where you're willing, and you're willing to give it all up, and to really not give it wordplay, but to really give up all of your shit that you can never go back to. You can't go back to that story and that narrative. You can't go back to the bullshit reality. When you truly can't go back, it's terrifying for the person. It's terrifying.
Yeah, definitely. The question, what I'm wondering is though, that what happens if people take different red pills? Like one person will try to make sense of everything once they're stop taking the blue pill, and they're like, okay, this is how I make sense of it. But another person looks into different things and they make sense of things in a different way with a different lens. And then they start, because they're angry and they're actually starting to fight rather than passive, because they're angry that things are so fucked and they can tell something's fucked up, then they start fighting over what the real truth is. So the next step is to move beyond fighting over which red pill is true, maybe.
Yeah, it's all, to me, it all funnels down to the same red pill. The reality is anybody's anger, all this anger it's projected anger. The anger only comes from the self, not showing up. It's like all of our anger is all kind of, in a way, it's all a falsehood and a delusion. It's all it's like kind of comes down to this: you can't throw stones in glass houses. None of us can, no matter who you are, no matter where you get or what you do. So it's like all the anger that people have to the left or the right or the government or their parent, it doesn't matter. Just name your who you hate or who you blame. That's where your the real work has to begin, because you have to realize it's you. Anger is nothing more than an inability to articulate energy. So the better you get, this is universal, the better we get at articulating our emotional currency, which anger is frustration because you can't complete a circuit. The only reason you can't complete a circuit is because you don't have the pathways to articulate your emotional currency.
Okay,
Like,
so someone's frustrated. Why would they not be able to finish a circuit?
They wouldn't be able to finish a circuit because there's a couple of reasons. Usually it's because there's an immaturity. So let's say like a young kid, like my son, who gets mad over wanting a toy or whatever. He can't articulate. He can't say, "Dad, go grab me the dinosaur from the shelf." So he gets all upset. He's using grunts and groans and say a dino, this, that, and he's frantic. He's passionate and angry because he can't articulate his desire. "Hey, Dad, I want the dinosaur on the shelf. Can you please get that for me?" And the better that you can think about anything in your life. It comes down to language, really. This is what I've learned too. Is it the one and only way to articulate our anger, our frustration, our passions, our desires is through language. It's through our inner dialogue that we have with ourselves and everyone around us. Because this is what starts with the questions.
Okay.
Why are you angry? Why are you depressed? Why are you here? Why are you there?
Is it about being understood? Is it about being understood?
I think it goes deeper than that, because being understood is like an impossibility, and I think it's a far-fetched, and I think it's a form of validation. What I think we're always looking for here is apprehension. Understanding isn't apprehension. Apprehending is a whole different thing.
So confusion is the source of anger and frustration.
Confusion, and it's not just chaos, confusion, immaturity.
What is immaturity? I know it sounds obvious, but what is it?
Immaturity would be exactly like, I look at it as there's not enough nodes that have come to connectivity and not lit up yet. So immaturity is that the connectivity has not developed to a critical mass. And we can look at this very simple with our own neurospheres with children. So when you have a small child, they can't articulate themselves. Their risk reward systems are not remotely developed. There's all sorts of these things that don't develop until you're about 25, 16, 20, 25. So different parts of our own neurosphere develop. And until they develop fully, we don't have the ability to articulate and navigate and harness our power in the way that it is, because of one thing. The connectivity is not there, the physicality, the nodes, the mathematics, the logic, the connectivity is not there yet. It's just like water doesn't become wet until there's enough H2O molecules that connect.
It's about understanding and making sense of things to a certain point where you can actually, okay, so something's happening, then there's a sequence of logical steps, but you can't get to a point where you can feed back into it and then move to the next loop. And maybe we learn through a series of loops. And if we can't do it, we just, it frazzles and starts again.
To me, it's really, I boil it down where I think it's really simple to me now, is I look at it as relevancy versus irrelevancy, and resolution versus chaos and bullshit. So I think if we look at it in a very simple way, is in our relationships, in our lives, in our own inner dialogue, in what we're doing on a daily basis, are we resolving what has currently been unresolved. So all of the things that are clearly not relating well in your life, no matter what it is, are you resolving those relationships, inner and, because it's extended, inner and outer? Are you resolving that which you're able to pinpoint is unresolved? And so this is where all of your real value and meaning that nobody can ever take away from you. Nobody on earth can pull this rug from underneath you. So if you're going, you look in your environment, whether it's your family, whether it's your job, it doesn't matter what it is, you can go in there and go, okay, what's not working here? You know, or take yourself, take a personal profile. What's clearly not working here? I've lived 20 years, I've lived 30 years, I've lived 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. I've done pretty well, I've done really shitty, I've done whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. You can clearly write down a whole checklist. The more ruthless you get, the more authentic you get, the more time you spend, the more that the list will come into fruition. And so you go, here's all the stuff that's unresolved. Here are the things that I clearly don't know and don't understand. I don't have a clear apprehension of what's going on here. And so like with most people, it's very, very obvious that most people don't have a clear a connection with a chord and an apprehension with the self. Like, what is really happening here? What can you bet your fucking bottom dollar on that nobody, no central authority, no individual, no claim to fame, shuckster can take from you? And the only thing nobody can take from you is that you're able to identify what's fucking unresolved in my life, what's not clear in my own inner picture, and then how can I spend and learn to spend as much mindful time and presence on resolving that horseshit that is on my plate that everyone else will have to deal with. My kids will deal with, my coworkers will deal with, my wife, my spouse, everybody else deals with the mountain of our unresolved bullshit. And so to the degree that I just resolve my own shit, I know that no matter what anybody's telling me, I'm doing my part, because it's the only way that I as an individual can look outside myself and go, am I doing good here? Am I, because you're always having to bounce and echo off the canvas to see where your bearings are, and we're always looking to go, am I pissing my time away? Am I wasting my fucking time? Or am I really spending my time wisely? And most people, they're not going to tell you, they don't know the difference. Are you spending your time wisely? Are you not? Can you articulate how that is so? What are you?
How do you know? Because, I mean, you might say, what, never have a leisure? Actually, that's a question. Actually, this is something I've been grappling with. How much of leisure is just escapism that isn't really what you want to be doing? Is creativity maybe more what people want to do?
Well, I think when it truly lights up, there is no difference. Like,
there
is no difference in any of that. Whereas I think that, again, I think the only way to truly enjoy the material world and the material things that everybody is all in their lower tier appetites are always desiring, the only way to truly enjoy anything is to be in this state of mindful presence and self-actualization. Otherwise, it's just like a heroin junkie or a sugar junkie or any of somebody like if there's no mindful presence and you're just enjoying all of these low life desires, you're hungry, you desire, hungry, desire. It's this endless cycle of insatiability. And so I think when people are exploring those experiences with what I call low life desires that are never satisfied, it's always something else. When you are within that unconscious model, it's a model for hell, because it's this hole you can never fill.
Yeah.
Go talk to a heroin addict; they'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Why not? If you want happiness, why not? And this is what most people are searching for: is they they think they want well-being, but what they're searching for is happiness and comfortable certainty, so that they can know that everything's going to be a-okay. And part of this whole equation here too is realizing that you're never going to know. Nobody, like, though the cosmos and life or God or mind or whatever, it doesn't matter what you think you're after. It's just like I wouldn't, if I was at the top of the chain, I wouldn't give you what you're after, because it's not the point. You're never going to get that answer. You're never going to get that whatever you think, that eyewitness, self-evident testimony, that aliens coming down and God coming from the sky, or whatever people think is going to give them that peace of mind, ain't fucking coming. Ain't coming. It only comes through the work. It only comes through the work of the self. And that's when you have a relationship with the cosmos here. Then that's when you realize, holy shit, no wonder you're never going to get the answer. But you
don't get it unless you earn it, because the external reality reflects what's going on the side, right?
100%. It's also it's the old Christian parable of seek and you shall find. It's absolutely that. So it's like, that's what I try to tell people too, because it's not this whole one-up game. Like, everybody gets to get into this woke culture, and woke culture is all bullshit. What people have to understand, because it's like this double-edged sword. Everybody's going to get it when they're going to get it, but we're also running out of fucking time. Like, this game is set up to be exponential and accelerated. So we are really running out of time for people to come online. But also, people are going to get it when they get it. So like when people are, lights are meant to turn on, they turn on. You work, and you can only do you, but yet it's almost like people call it grace in a way, or the cosmos and life knows what it's doing. It's unfolding things right on time. And so we like to get worked up about where we think we are, what we think, why we want things on our terms. And so that's why we suffer, is because we want everything on our terms. We think we should be somewhere where we're not. But if we're here, we're here. We can fight up until reality unfolds. Now, I could fight up till now, but now's now. Now I got to accept reality. Reality unfolded. So reality knows what the fuck it's doing. It's leading us to enhanced states of resolution. That's what the cosmos does. That's why we do what we do. We are microcosm for the macrocosm. Right. We are all trying to resolve what is currently unresolvable. That's why our technologies go from black and white grady TVs to plasma 4K, hyper, ever more resolute images.
So on the macro scale, how do you solve the unresolvable?
Well, it's exactly what's happening right now. What I consider, what is actually here, which is mind. To me, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it, it doesn't matter. Divinity, even, it doesn't matter. It's doing the same thing we are doing. So to the degree that, because we're like little nodes, we're like little mycelium networks for greater cosmos that are nested within greater cosmos, that are weaving within the greater cosmos. To the degree that we make the unconscious conscious, the greater mind becomes more conscious. So when you become more conscious and I become more conscious, that's what lights up the greater mind. And you could look at it like you. It's like if you have a family and your kids start getting things that they currently weren't getting, like start to talk. As a father or a mother, you generate feelings of well-being, because you see that your offspring go from immature darkness and unconsciousness to light.
It's an elation and a sense of, well, you feel lighter for it, and that's a rising frequency, right?
It's one that you can feel naturally. It's not a forced or a make-believe feeling. And that's what we're trying to get here too, is trying to separate these real feelings from make-believe feelings too.
Yeah. So I'm aware that there's the correspondence between the macro and the micro. And so in a sense, finding more unity within you and your different aspects or whatever will help. And I'm also aware, interestingly, even very recently, there have been trends, for example, politically with libertarianism, for example, where there's this idea of libertarian unity, where they're actually trying to actually work together with people on the libertarian left and other people in their movement instead of just like squabbling. And that seems like quite a good sign. And it all seems to be starting to happen this year.
Mhm.
And things like that seem like a step in the right direction to me. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it comes to this it, it it comes to this point to where, again, from all chaos and all destruction comes a greater resolution. But the thing is, this is where our society has to wake up to this deal. Is um, like I keep saying, we're kind of running out of time here with things. So and it kind of goes right back to what I was talking about right in the beginning of this whole pod, is the idea of centralized authority versus decentralized authority. And so what I think people are going to start to realize is we can have our cake and eat it too. The left and right, up or down, it doesn't terribly matter. Left or right ideologies that have their good points can be served through the decentralized merit kind of meritocratic service deliverance system that blockchain can actually deliver. You can go check out some of these metaverses that have created blockchain DAOs. It's a way of that there are people that develop and who are passionate about their communities and their development, a way of governing the future of their environment.
Right.
And
Do you
so,
think? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Do you think the elites want to co-opt blockchain technologies and cryptos because they know that it's a decentralizing force and they lose their power the more decentralized things are?
The unconscious power that be that yeah, again, everything to me is understood by the unconscious to greater and lesser degrees. So that's why, like with cannabis or with psychedelics or with blockchain cryptocurrency, just like the point you're saying, any specific substance or medium or even person that can disrupt even the idea of a centralized authority becomes very problematic, becomes very because you got to look at it too, as it runs counter to our entire civilization, the way of doing things, which has always been a centralized perspective.
So what do you think of GameStop?
That would take a whole podcast in above itself. It's interesting on so many levels that, again, I could get into it for forever. But what it does, what it does show on a couple of levels is it's such a mixed bag. That's why I really like the topic a lot, because it involves technology, it involves community, but it also involves largely unconscious people that are going to only get hurt from it. And so now, I've always been an investor. I've always been economic and financially minded. So I've been deep into investing since before I could even walk. And I've grown up in the environment, and I've done cryptocurrency since Bitcoin was first started. And so it's interesting to me. It's also, again, a lot of these are good things. Is we're starting to see more people who would never ever trade stocks or to start to invest or to even build any sort of financial literacy. People are becoming more and more turned on. Average retailers, end users, retail workers, are people who haven't grown up from that environment. And again, it's like this, right? What I'm talking about with this mentorship. Nobody's been mentoring a financial and economic responsibility and how to manage equities and how to do all of these things And so, with this Wall Street bets and with this GameStop and all of this, is you got a lot of naive, immature, young, unconscious people who may or may not enjoy success, but predominantly and largely because they're immature and haven't done the work and they're immature, they're going to lose. And in my opinion too, it could lose the little opportunity that it had to disrupt a greater system, and also to change a system that's clearly corrupt, tilted, and not in the best interest of anybody, because not even the people that are running it, because things have to get more equitable across the board, or even the people who are tilting the tables aren't going to enjoy things. So it's like, we got to figure something out, and that's where decentralized.
Are you saying the people who tilted it? Are you saying the actual brokers who try to like short it and were thwarted by that subreddit, are the immature ones? Or are you saying the people who tried to actually block
well, it's the people that the people that really predominantly use Robinhood, the retail end users, the people that started to follow that movement. When I say immature, it's because they've never been. It's like for most of them, it's the first time they ever opened up Robinhood, or they ever opened up a financial account or a legacy account.
Right, but isn't there a good thing going on in that people are actually realizing the power that they actually have and acting on it rather than just being passive?
It only if that's what I'm talking about, where it's at this state, it's immature, and it's obvious it's immature because you go look at what's happening right now is a lot of the people are losing their ass. And I think that, that movement, because it's a decentralized movement, there's nobody that's leading it. It's a bunch of people there that are saying they're fighting for it goes right back to my basic thought. To the degree that all these people do the work on themselves and don't bullshit themselves and don't say that they're out there for to help their brother, we're all in this together. The biggest con man that can get people moved is, hey guys, we're in this together. And so I've never seen a movement in my entire life where we've been in this together. It's always been a seed of good thing, and then the unconscious wrecks it because people can't come to terms with what's going on fast enough to actually harness the energy of transformation.
Right.
And that's what I fear right now it's going to happen, is there's an opportunity here to harness the good, and for people to truly work together, but it will only result to the degree that the people do the individual work like in their own head.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So again, when we have 90%, 98% of the people, no matter what the model is, everybody thinks they're doing good for their fellow. We're out there, but if you examine it objectively, you're probably not.
What does it look like? What would it look like if it really was people who've resolved their internal issues, their internal shit, and are working together?
It's super simple. First of all, it's just like anybody relating well in a relationship. People are going to ask questions. So you will in any sort of environment, if you go look at any sort of, doesn't matter whether it's a bulletin board, whether it's a Facebook page with a comment, are there attacks? Are there ad hominem attacks? Are there anything that is because the way I look at this too, it goes right back to what I keep saying about being irrelevant or irrelevant. If you go look at most people post or most people talk or most people do, it's only about you. You're just saying your bullshit. So you're projecting it as, oh, I'm on the side of good. I'm on the side of right. My game's more interesting than your game. I'm on the side of good. Yet really, your whole spiel is only about fucking you. And so most people, most of the time, if you examine anything like these causes and scauses, and you start to examine people who are community thought leaders and shit, it's like, to the degree they done the work in their head, will be the falsehood or the grand, the good thing that they build. So if you've done the work and you've really you're there to fucking do business, which is resolve the unresolved. If you got a group of people on a team, 10 people that are all willing to work, that have done the work, and they're willing to now focus their personal currency on problem solving, which is resolving, which is currently unresolvable, they are going to relate night and day different than a group of 10 people that have, to the other various degrees, haven't done the work. They're going to ask questions. They're going to entertain things. They're going to be fearless. Their communication is going to be very clear, but kind and compassionate and coherent. It's going to be straightforward. It's not going to go here one way and then back the next. It might be layered, as many things are layered, but the people will be able to articulate it straightforward and reasonably. What you would see in that way is reason and logic. And you will see the lack of emotion, even though you may see passion and enthusiasm, which is a proper creative emotion. You know, like emotion should be harnessed and used. It shouldn't be used to beat each other down or beat our own selves down. Enthusiasm is a fuel, you know, so people should be enthusiastic. And the only way you're going to be enthusiastic is if you're on the right pathway, which is, we're here to resolve some shit, guys. We're not here to play these the one-up games or the power struggle games, or for me to look like I'm the guy in the room that knows the most, or I'm the guy in the room that's a contrarian and I'm the person you need to follow now. If you go look at any good movement, you know, anybody that's worth their fucking salt is going to highly qualify what they're doing to a certain degree, you know, and that's what you're going to see with people that really have their shit together. There will be the biggest attribute you'll see is a complete discredit of their claim to anything, like of their being self-importance. I guess that would be like their creativity is of self-importance, you know. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So how can we help other people to do that inner work?
I think the big thing, you know, without the proper things in place right now, you know, I think for most people, all this stuff sounds so simple, and that's what makes it so hard, because what's easy to do is just as easy not to do. And it's usually not, it's a lot easier not to do it. But for those that are seeking and the lights have come on and they've got some traction, I would suggest there's practical practices, because people can talk philosophy and all this bullshit and cows come home, but it doesn't do anything for the fellow person. So you have to have tangible things that people can do. So the first tangible thing that people have to accept and understand, and then they can practice what's called stalking the self, which means, hey, you've got to accept the fact that every single thing you see outside yourself is within yourself and is a part of you. So even if whatever you're judging or saying that is bad in another human being, you got to realize it's in you too. You aren't any different. So you have to realize that every single thing that you witness that you don't like, that you blame outside yourself, you have to realize that is part of your poisonous projection. And so you start with stalking yourself. So when you start, you got to start somewhere. So when those feelings come up, oh, Trump is a dirtbag piece of shit, whatever. Okay, you need to slow down and go, okay, start to stalk your own self. How identify what the breakdown is there. You know, okay, you say the guy's he's not trustworthy, he's dishonest. Okay, well, everybody's dishonest. So start to, instead of projecting those anger, blame feelings out there, start to identify them. Start to go inward and go, okay, stalk the self. Why am I angry about this shit? Because our natural state should be accord. It should be like water. It should be like we should be able to move through any substance unhindered by any obstacle. It's only when we
Right.
become ruffled by things we don't understand where we start to fucking have a friction with with the cosmos. The more that we can start to really get to the heart of the matter, the more that we're going to be steady, the more that we're going to be able to help resolve things.
Okay. Though I've heard that a lot of people are making progress. I can see signs of it as well, like making progress within the work, partly because of just how more chaotic it's gotten. So maybe more catalyst for more chaos is actually part of what helps.
Oh, well, it's destruction. It's like the nature of Shiva. Is again, this is why I keep saying all of this is exactly on time. It's all of this is the purpose for anybody to think that like the cosmos doesn't have a greater purpose. It's a complete lack of understanding. And it's also it's in many of the ancient allegories of, like, even within the Christian mythology with the wine press. And there's always this allegory and metaphor for the wine press. What does the wine press mean? What are they trying to talk about with the wine press? And the wine press squeezes fruit. You're either going to have sour grapes or you're going to have spiritual effervescence. You're going to have wine. You're going to have fine wine. You're going to have fucking sour grapes. And the only way you start to test the fruit is through the press, is through the fucking fire, through the chaos, through hell. And so again, it's self-evident. The only way you're going to really test whether you're worth a shit is how well you walk through hell, how well you walk through fire. Because again, anybody can say nice things, and anybody can coast through the day and be comfortably certain, as long as they're not disturbed. As long as things are okay, then you can keep that comfortably certain state of mind. Which is bullshit. It's so many people, they've lived really wonderfully mundane lives of never being disrupted for whatever reason. Sometimes that's the way that it's mathematically kind of just distributed. But everybody at some point in time will get put through the wine press in one way or another. And it's the only way that, again, living a life down here on Earth is an allegory for the wine press, is how well we face the fire of our own existence is, it's how well we're going to do, what we do from here on out. It's what's wrapped up in the Egyptian, Book of the Dead, and the whole Egyptian mythology is, they weigh your heart against the feather of Ma'at, which is justice. And so all of this goes right back to this whole same thing, is you're weighing what did you resolve here? And so if your heart's heavy, it's going to weigh heavy, and you're going to be eaten by a snowback.
Does that test happen many times in your life?
I think, again, it's like this, and everything's like this in a way. The micro, macro are the same kind of continuum. So obviously we have one death, but we also sleep at night. So we also have micro deaths. And
then so there's months and.
Well, every single frame, like even right now, 2 seconds ago, they're dead. They're not alive. We only have this frame. So even just 1, 2, 3 seconds of frames ago, they're dead. There's
Are you sure it's not all a moment? What if time's an illusion and it's all just the same moment?
Well, it is in a way. It is. It is in a way. Duration is just we have to have duration down here in this material
because realm. We get. There's reasons. Yeah, we get change in it, but it slows down, so it's more meaningful for us.
Well, you have to have it like frozen, dense material, physical, so we can do work, so we can enjoy, explore, build, create. Without material density, without cohesion, without which is embodiment, which is the essence of everything. Without embodiment, without materialism, there is no there is no exploration, there is no consciousness, there is no anything.
Or at least at this stage of things, maybe a certain level of ascension, like it becomes meaningless. But yeah.
Yeah, well, there's different again, there's different higher state realms that don't need the same requisite environments, the environmental fundamentals or tendencies. And so it's obviously, you can just think if we evolved, and we will evolve, this will happen. This is what we'll see with Neuralink and going further into this is you're going to see that we can be downloaded into a solid state ecosystem. We're going to be able to be downloaded into virtual reality environments and avoid death, given somebody doesn't pull the plug on that. And so when we're able to show that our own state of consciousness, our own what we consider ecosystem or a broadcast or whatever, can be somehow transferred into a different state of body and also learn to interact within different environments that aren't physical, which we will. We're already becoming indoctrinated to that. That's what we're doing here with all of our technologies and our handhelds.
Right, but isn't that just an imitation of the real way it's done, which is spiritually?
Well, you look at it as close as this is what you're seeing right now. You're starting to see it with virtual reality and quantum processing. The closer that we get, the more that our technology is doing what it's doing, we're finding out that we're emulating the cosmos. We're emulating the higher state technologies because all we're in an immature state. Like we are immature to a higher state. Again, time is immaterial. Time and the environment's immaterial. So we are just in this immature state that will mature and evolve and metamorphosize and transmutate. It will go to other levels of existence. So it's but what you'll see on each level is, again, it's as above, so below, is what happens here happens everywhere. So it's like what our minds are cosmoses. The internet is a mind. All is mind. We're individually a monad. We're a node. We're a neuron in a greater mind.
It's energy fields within energy fields within energy fields.
Yep. And it's all the same energy field. And so just because we're a small monad, we are the universe. We are the cosmos.
Society's like that too, right? I mean, yeah, like.
And to me, this is like the pinnacle. To me, this is what has to be apprehended as a point of actualization. You can't. This is where I say you can't intellectually get there. You could understand, like if I laid it all out and you heard even my words and you understood it, the lights wouldn't come on. It comes on a different fucking way. But you can understand it, and you could think that you're getting there, but it doesn't get there until it's apprehended. And by that meaning is what changed it for me fundamentally by being very intellectual, and I can understand things very intellectual. But what changed it for me was when it wasn't an understanding. This is where I was kind of go back to this idea, which I would have thought was insane. It's this idea of grace from the cosmos. Like we come kicking and screaming, but for whatever reason, it's like the cosmos knows that you mean business, and it opens up for you, and it gives you this knowledge in a like this deep knowledge, like what I was talking about. Like we're all connected to the same mind, and so once you understand that my brothers outside myself are not external, they're not my enemies. There's no one to blame. You're not out there and I'm in here. It's all in here, and we're all out there. We're all part of the same mind, and so if whatever I do to you, I do to myself, and the cosmos knows it. So if I bullshit you or I try to pull one over on you, you're pulling one over on yourself. The cosmos knows. It knows, like, why are you doing that? It's like when the cosmos knows that you mean business, it opens up more of what's already here.
Right. So you do enough of the inner work, and essentially the universe is like, all right, I'm giving you a download, or I'm going to give you just that higher awareness, or maybe it's gnosis. I'm not sure, but
I look at it, it's like a circuit. The way I look at it, we have a state of discord, and then we have a state of accord. And I look at it like a light switch. So you go into a room and the light is off. That's a state of discord. It's dark. There's no light in that room. Why is there no light in that room? Because 3 points on that circuit are not complete. The switch that completes the circuit is dormant. It's not alive. It's not on. 2 states, dormant, alive. So right now there's a state of darkness. The only way for that light to come on is for that 3rd point to flick up, and the energy is allowed to complete the circuit, and all of a sudden the lights come on, and now you've got aliveness and light.
and how do you, right? So how do you get that switch?
Well, it's when you start, I think when you, again, like the cosmos knows just like you know. So when you're done bullshitting, and you're never
Is
done
it honesty then? Being honest with yourself about something, or realizing something?
well, it's absolutely, it's like when it's true seeking. So when you've had enough of enough, and you really want to, again, you want to have an honest conversation with yourself. You have an honest conversation with the cosmos. So it's like you're having a conversation with life, and to the degree that you're bullshitting it, to the degree it won't listen. But the second you start going, I'm ready, it's going to open up, and it creates a relationship. So now there's a chord where there was discord because you were full of shit, and it knew that you weren't ready yet. You were just trying to, you're like, oh, here you are again with your prayers or pleads for blah, 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 but really it's still another scam or whatever it is. It's like when it knows you're full of shit, it doesn't create a relationship, an accord. But yet when there's an accord, this is where, like a lot of the states of gnosis and what people did back in the day, that's what they dedicated their whole lives to, is to being so ruthlessly honest and deep and authentic with themselves. Is that's why, again, going on, in a cave or going on walkabout or getting away for a while, can be a good thing, is because you need some of that, cultivate some of that disconnection to start, working, having the power and the ability to start working on that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I guess part of it is that we shove junk into our minds in a way that makes it harder to actually clear up.
It's worse than that. Is we downloaded, we installed and instilled programming just the way that we do with our phones and computers from our upstream providers, which was television, media, mom, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, institutions, school teachers, 0 to 7, 7 to 13. All of that is downloaded like apps. And it creates your culture. Your culture is your operating system, like Windows or Apple or Android. Yet that's how you function. That's how you protect. That's how you think you've got to navigate. All of those schema that you were downloaded are lies and falsehoods and bullshit. So because the people that developed those apps and did all that, they didn't know any better either. So you have to first start to flush out all of the cultural indoctrination at the culture. You have got to look at the culture and dissolve it all. This is why, again, I'm a big proponent for psychedelics, because to me, it's the only thing I found that can actually, in one session, change the whole ballgame like that. And really, I think it's it's what's the most necessary, because it actually dissolves the neural ruts that, once you started at 13, 14, 15, 16, start playing your games, the same games your parents played, same games that you saw on television play, you start to reinforce them like ruts in the snow. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, reward, operate conditioning. You start to just calcify these pathways. So by the time that you're unhappy as fuck because your games didn't get you to where you wanted to go at 20, 30, and 40, you're depressed and unhappy, you don't know where to go from there. It's because of your inability to relate well with yourself and all those around you is why you don't produce the economics and equities in your life. Why you don't have the things in your life to your heart, your mind's desire, is because you haven't related well with yourself. If you related well with yourself, you would be able to relate well with everybody around you, and you would lead them into building great things, because that's what inspires people, is the articulation of inspirational things.
I got a question. If you're starting to unravel the bullshit, will you look like, to people who haven't done that yet, like you're going crazy?
The same. The thing it's almost like to most people they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's only when it's like the kind know their kind. Once it's really hard for other people to and that's where what I would tell people on their individual experience is, when you're going through real transformation, you're on this pathway, is you do have to realize, because it's all part of it, is don't expect anyone to see it, and don't expect anyone to get it, and don't expect anyone to be there for you, and don't expect anyone to support you. In fact, what's going to happen more than likely, all of your loved ones and the ones around you, because they're fighting the exact same battle, and all they want to do is pull you down to their comfortably certain gravity, the same way that you're doing it, is so you're not going to get anything from there either. So it's like society, when you're doing, this is why it's so hard right now to actually not become part of this bullshit woke culture, or this bullshit occupy culture, or this bullshit cancel culture, or this bullshit whatever. It's so difficult for people to really, really dig, is because there's no space for them to do so, because everyone around you is trying to do the same thing, but it's so difficult and no one's supporting them. So nobody can tell up from down, or what's woke from not woke, and from people that are really the people in companies that really give a shit, to, oh, you're just like everybody else.
Yeah, at least though, previously the situation was that no one questioned the bullshit, and everyone was up to a point stable in the bullshit, and it was all commonly agreed, and for generations everyone just agreed on it, more or less. I mean, there's big shakeups, but it's only now with the situation where almost the majority of people are in this chaotic state of painful, I guess that it's like they're painfully taking off that band-aid, but it's in slow motion, you know.
You gotta look at it like this here too, is, and this is what I used to have to, I would go on about with the internet, because I really believed, the people that built the internet really did care about liberty and enlightenment, because and this is where I think courage and leadership really comes into play here, is because with the internet, with connecting everyone, with bringing higher states of consciousness and awareness to not just the chosen few, but to everyone, you have to connect everyone. And when you connect everyone, it's like having a schizophrenic, like a dozen schizophrenics in your living room every day. And so when you haven't done the work and found stable ground in your own head, and no one has, and you're a schizophrenic, and everyone around you is schizophrenic, because look at Facebook feeds, or look at Twitter feeds, or look at your news feeds. It's a form of schizophrenia. Everyone's got their own polarizing point of view, and it all creates this total holistic perspective. So if you go take anybody everyone will give their own little, what they think is a sacred aspect or perspective on some bullshit point. And if you get enough comments, they're going to build this totality of a whole perspective. And so, I've got my fucking train of thought there, but.
Right. So there's this whole, people create this whole construct with other people who agree enough, and then they fight with it. With this one construct fights another one, and just like
it's also about like like back, I guess back to my original point was we had to connect everyone, and so in order to get to our end game, which is liberty and enlightenment for all, that's what I believe it is as far as the cosmos, because without it, it's just darkness. It's all it's going to be. So you have to connect it. You got to connect everyone. All right. Well, with connecting everyone, you're going to bring in all of the horseshit, which means various states of immaturity in the psychological development. Like somebody from the Sudan or Colombia is not going to be on the same economic, psychological, social, evolutionary maturity level as somebody that is an intellectual MIT grad from New York, or from like, not everybody's on the same page. Now we brought everyone to the same library, and so we have to now start to realize that we are in this schizophrenic, chaotic environment where everyone is saying everything from every angle, left, right. It's always, so everything seems in a state of chaos, and where people aren't cooperating. So now we're in that state. Now from that state, which is also unresolved. So with chaos and discord, we have darkness and chaos. So now it's up to us, because there's no other way. It's like, if we don't connect everyone and then we don't resolve and get everybody on the same page, we're all fucked. If we didn't connect everyone, we're all fucked. There's only one way out of this: connecting everyone, getting the critical mass on the same page of what is truly worth fighting for, what's truly worth building a life and a country and an economic system for. All of these basic questions will have to be answered in the next 5 to 10 years, if that. And to the degree that we answer it will be the degree of our, not just our survival, but obviously our well-being.
Yeah, but I'm optimistic because I'm seeing signs that more and more people are waking up. But I mean, all I can really do is do the inner work, I guess, because I know I'm not like there yet. I'm in the process of it, and there's probably I'm sure there's bullshit that I haven't uncovered with myself. Just everyone.
The one thing that nobody told me, and what I believe is a universal truth, is there is a point. I really believe there's a critical point of self-actualization, and so there is a point where you're greatly dark, and then you're turned on, night and day. Like, to me, from my experience, it was literally like the earth shit, like completely night and day, and it came from that perspective, feeling separate to, I get it, not separate. It's that simple. From I'm separate to I'm part of this greater cosmos. That's the mind. I'm not separate. Nothing's separate from me. So it goes from feeling isolated, separate, and alone to I got it. And
Did you get it intellectually, but feel isolated for a while, and before you actually got it in the other sense?
Well, it's different, because once you do get it, from the cosmotic sense, it's just like this. It's just like when you've spent your whole life relying on unconscious ways of relating, like our cliches that we say with people, like how's the weather, or you tell people things that aren't, like all these things, they're cliches. You don't realize the magnitude of your own bullshit until you step out of the monkey house. Like, I never realized how, when I examine things objectively, how 80 to 90% of all of my correspondence was bullshit. It was about me. It was about some sort of bullshit with me, and it wasn't geared toward resolving. It's not always about resolving. This can be about entertaining. It's about being authentic and speaking from the heart. So sometimes it's not all about resolving. It's about sharing, entertaining. But yet we all know when we deviate from that and it becomes a mindless game of one up, or a mindless game of, hey, how you doing? I don't really give a shit what you're doing or whatever, but we play these games. But you don't realize how much of that is your entire daily operation, which it really is about 98%.
Right. You said being authentic, right? But what if it's easier said than done? What if people don't know how they're not being authentic?
In the beginning, well, it is like that. That's where it's just like swimming. Is, I think, when you've lived an entire life of not being, and again, I consider myself like this, but where I was, what was good for me in a way is, to the degree that you're, I think the more full of shit you are, and the more full of shit you've been, the greater your chances of not being full of shit in the future. Because being so hyper full of shit, doesn't, it eventually, if you're a little bit full of shit, sometimes you don't notice it. It's so a lot of times people don't notice that they're being unauthentic. A lot of likable people who've skated by life haven't realized that they've led lives of quiet desperation, and they've been nice just because they've been unconscious the whole time. So it's like you almost want large degrees of deceit, self-deceit, and lies, so it can finally, life can, because to me it's almost like it's I haven't seen many people that have gotten it without getting a tragedy, like without some sort of life throwing them a major league meteorite or like really fucking them up.
It's interesting. I mean, there's the idea of the hero's journey, so that life reflects stories, because life is a story. And if you look at the stereotypical hero, he always has a tragic background, right? But he wouldn't be able to be heroic if he hadn't actually had that trauma to actually have less bullshit. So in a way, stories actually kind of tell us something.
100%. And also, we down here on Earth in this environment, we are going to tell ourselves a narrative. We are going to bind ourselves and render a production. So like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where or what we're doing in this realm, and other realms too. So it's not just this realm. Is we're going to tell ourselves a story. We might as well tell ourselves a story that's true. Right now, everyone on Earth is telling themselves and telling everyone else a false narrative. And so when you build relationships in anything on false narratives, it's only a matter of time before they crumble before your eyes. And rightfully so, they should crumble. Anything false should crumble. So to the degree that we build things on relationships that are clear and coherent and value added and authentic and honest, forthright, will be the degree that our structures will withstand the test of time. And a lot of times when we're doing it, we don't know. And this is where it kind of goes back to my main point is, you got it. This is where courage comes in. And this is why this shit's set up like this is, you're not going to know whether you're doing the right thing, but you do know when you're being forthright and you're giving people fair and square consideration. And that's all I'm really talking about here is when you're giving yourself, you're giving people in your life, and you're giving everyone that you're kind of coming into contact with the most mind that you can cultivate. You're being authentic with reality as it is. You're not telling them bullshit, and you're actually trying to be of value to them. The more things are going to kind of progress for you.
Right. And one of the things that it's something I've come back to, and then I've realized new ways I could apply it. And it's something Jordan Peterson talked about, which is this idea. It's not just Jordan Peterson, it's also Carl Jung. This idea that you've really got to understand your own malevolence, or how much of a rascal you are, whatever, the idea, and there's new ways to explore like that.
Yeah, the thing
because
is,
it's there anyway. If you don't recognize it, it's still there. But when you learn it, you might get another stage.
well, what happens with it, and this is the nature of disembodiment, is to the degree, and you see this with the priesthood, and you see this with many spiritual people, and this is what I think happens too, that many people don't talk about, and it's really a little bit bizarre in a way. And again, there's not many people that have talked about this in this sort of way. Is when you when you I just kind of lost my train of thought there.
Our malevolence, and when we
Yeah. What you have to come to terms with is this the nature of disembodiment. So it goes back to what I was saying too earlier, is that whatever you judge outside yourself, you better come to terms with it inside yourself. So it doesn't matter. This is what Jordan Peterson was talking about too, with is, so you say Hitler, you better realize that you have it within you to not just hurt other people, but to enjoy it. And so you can't run away from that. If you think
I've
that,
even done it. You've done it to siblings, even when you're a kid. I'm sure there's been a time.
so
You're
it
like,
doesn't matter what it is, the dark side is within you, and you have to come to terms with that. And the other thing is what becomes very difficult is and I think this is a part of fortifying the mind. Like I really think it's part of this whole test and metal, and why I think a lot of priests and other quote holy people fall. And it's like this proverbial desert story of like with Jesus and the Christian mythology is, when you do open yourself up, to me, you open yourself up to the totality of the field. And with the open yourself up to the totality of the field, because you have to, so you can come to terms with the dark side, is you have to be able to integrate and come to terms and integrate with the dark side, while not allowing it to emerge. Let's put it that way. Let's say that's the best way, because what happens is, what a lot of people don't realize is we're not our thoughts. Thoughts come from the field. And so everybody in their life have had dozens to hundreds of really fucked up thoughts that would be embarrassed to ever tell anybody, and would horrify them. And so everyone on earth has had this experience. They don't talk about it because who the fuck would talk about it? And so what you do have to understand is our thoughts aren't us. Yet when you're taking these leaps into the unknown, you are going to battle forces that are specifically there to fuck you up. They're there to paint ugly things. They're there to depress you. They're there to try to bring you down even harder than before.
thoughts in the field
I would say
that depress you, that you come to. What do you mean?
What I'm saying is that when you are opening yourself up and you're ready to face all turns, both light and dark, when you open yourself up, terms, metaphors, plus whatever you want to call it, they come from the field.
Concepts, or
take whatever you want. It doesn't matter what it is.
It's like your exploration goes to dark places at times, and it's when you're grappling with that.
So it doesn't
What
matter
happens if, I don't know, other people hear you doing that and they're like, what the fuck, man? Because they're not willing to see it themselves, so they see you doing it and they're like, but it doesn't really matter, because so there's a risk that you
got to look at
dark you will win.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Jordan Peterson with his breakdown. Is when it's this ever. You can think of it just like if you were trying to build someone to be able to help you out in the future. Let's just take it like that. Let's just say you take you right now and you wanted to build someone a million years in the future that would ensure your own survival. You're going to make sure that there's this ever progressive tests that are going to build your capabilities and bring you to higher states of capability, relationships with who you are, because you know time doesn't stand still, and the things you're going to need 1,000 years and 10,000 years aren't going to be the same things as what there are now. And so you're always in this state of progression. You're always in this state of uncovering. And that's the most beautiful part of this whole thing that I found, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, there's a critical mass of enlightenment. The lights come on, but the journey doesn't stop whatsoever. In fact, that's the furthest thing from the truth. That once the critical mass comes on, I think that's when you start taking the journey. That's when it's like, okay, now we're on the pathway, the dirt cobbled shit ass pathway, and it's never ending. And so
But
wherever you think you are, it never ends.
still, it's better to be more, even though it never really ends, it's better to be more awake anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Well, in a one, this is where, again, Jordan Peterson touches on this. Is why I love it. It's really done a service. Is the only way the good ever have a chance to ever survive is by having a redeemed bad guy to protect them, because the good can't imagine where the dark side will go. So
yeah.
So in order for life, in order for a shepherd to have a flock, in order for life to do its thing, you have to have you have to have I forgot what the fuck, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
The redeemed bad guy. What's that?
Yeah. You have to have a redeemed bad person who, again, goes right back to resolving the unresolved. When it comes time to protect the people who need protecting, you have to imagine where the bad people will go. Because why do you think the good people need protecting? Because the bad people are going to places that the good people can't fucking go.
When you say good people, though, if they haven't resolved their shit, are they really good?
Well, when I'm using those terms more loosely, I would use it more like innocent and meek, or people who are. It's this way of like I say, like a child. There's a lot of people out here that everybody to a greater degree hasn't had a fighting chance, but it's also like there are developing. Just to say children, I think the children are the best way of looking at this. Is we are developed involuntarily, 0 to 7, 7 to 13. So our children, our offspring, are all indoctrinated and developed involuntarily. So they don't have a choice. As adults, we like to think we do, but we sort of do, because we're at least we have this sovereign will. We have this autonomy to a degree. But the kids that are developing, they don't have a chance. They don't have a choice in that matter. So it's like, it kind of goes right back to this idea of greater purpose. Is okay, well, they're good. That's what I'm kind of classifying as good, is our potentiality, our potential that is developed. That's the good. And that's the potential good that does the resolving, not just our own resolving, but our children who we equip well to do the resolving. So we want to equip our offspring and our developing children with tools and skill sets and power that they can become great resolvers, great creators and resolvers. And so that's who I'm mainly kind of talking about. Is there's young people, and there's also, I think, groups of people who are good in the way that their hearts are good. Their hearts are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of the people, even if they're acting badly at times, like their hearts are good and they're doing good in a bad way, in a childish way, I suppose you could say. Um, and then there's people who they've gone through that hell and they've come out and they've basically chosen the light. And then there's those who've chosen the dark or succumbed to the dark. And they are the danger that, in a sense, the good protect the weak from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's you know, it's really all of the same thing, you know, and that's where it's like that goes right back to the same point that I was making right in the beginning. Mindfulness is effort, is so it requires effort to to stand up for the right things, to have a relationship with reality, so you're not bullshitting your people around you, and so it's really the only way to defend and create an environment that good work can be done, which to me only good work is the resolution of things that are clearly dysfunctional and have kept us from a state of prosperity. So it's if you're not creating those environments, you're not cultivating those environments, then you could say it's bad, but I would say it's irrelevant. Most people they're not bad, they're irrelevant. But that said, what I do think too, and it goes to this other idea of a critical mass. So you can have people who are unconscious and who aren't bad, I would say bad, predacious people, like bad people. But there are people, and because it's a mathematical distribution, there are people, entities that are greatly to largely rot and collectively like poisonous. So you can have people that are mathematically irredeemable. So it's like if what could be a little thing, like, this is why doing the work immediately is so important, because you don't want to waste any moments, because it all counts. It all counts. I forgot what the fuck I was really going at there, but
it all counts because
it goes to this weighing of the heart. Like, again, if you imagine this like the Egyptian mythology of weighing the heart. So it's like you could have an inappropriate relationship with reality, but not really be that bad, not be predacious, and so your heart will be somewhat heavy, not really poisonous, but you're all right, you're churchy, all right, not bad, not predacious, never hurt anybody, never acted out on impulses or whatever. Okay, well, that's a different type of heart. Now, that's not a heart that has been enlightened or actualized, and that will do something different, because it's got more to resolve. Otherwise, it would have resolved it.
Right. So it's not okay. So it's not that they've done. If someone's done bad stuff, but they resolved it, it's not like, well, they still did it, so they sink. It's about what's resolved and what's not.
Yeah, in fact,
if it's resolved, it won't be black, will it?
No, it's done. That's the thing, is even this is what's really hard for, I think, some people to understand. Even people who have done horrific, hard things that would seem horrific, to the point that they're inner resolved, the greater the conflict, usually the greater the inner resolution, and the greater that the value that's kind of added to the whole equation is. So that's why you see, like, that's why I think Christianity might be really one of these things that criminals like to always gravitate to, because it's the whole spiritual philosophy is, no matter if you're seeking and it's the seeking is you have a clear intent to resolve. You're the seeking, we always hear knock, seek. Okay, well, if you truly care to get to the bottom of it, you're going to get to the bottom of it. You're not going to be denied it. So it doesn't matter whether you killed, like Saul, like dismembered and killed, like one of the celebrated people from the Christian mythology used to hunt down and kill Christians, and so it doesn't matter the magnitude of that. What matters is the intent and the resolution at hand, and that's all that matters.
Okay, so I feel like we're coming to a close. Is there anything you'd want to sum up the whole discussion with?
No, it's a bit
Abrupt.
typical, a bit all over the place, but it to me it is really simple, and I wish I work on trying to make it more simple at some point in my life, but it's really you have to start to become an objective passerby to your own condition, instead of spending any time. When I say any, it's best to get into a state of absolution, which means never doing it. Is take the next year and do not get angry or bitch or blame anybody outside yourself. And every time that you get an inclination or a feeling that something's not fair, or something you don't like that you blame on somebody else, whether it could be a Starbucks lady that doesn't give you your coffee, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter. You practice like a fucking martial artist or a weightlifter. Practice stalking yourself and feeling those feelings of injustice come up in your head, and then start to stalk yourself and how in your life experience, how you embody those same characteristics. And then at the beginning, just identify. You don't even have to don't beat yourself up. Don't just post hoc rationalize how you don't do it better, worse, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just identify in the beginning, and then you can start to move to the absolution position again. Too is all right. Identify deceit as a pattern. I'm not going to post hoc rationalize this, minimize it, dilute it. I'm not going to scapegoat it. I'm going to really get ruthless in identifying it in my own life experience recent, as recent and extended. And I really have cultivating the intent to not do it on a daily practice. So now I'm identifying it. Now I'm not doing it. So you move to the next stage, what's called not doing. So you stalk the self to see all of the negative things that come up, and then you just identify. Then the next level of that practice is the not doing. So now you find yourself, hey, now I'm not only not getting inappropriately frustrated and angry at the wrong people, I'm able to now move even past that, and now I do see where the real dishonesty or discord resides. And it's always us. It's always us.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. It was a pretty good conversation, like last time. And well, I'm pretty sure my listeners enjoyed it, although there's not many of them yet. Right. Okay, so thanks for listening, and goodbye.